Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode, actually a bonus episode of Positive Filter. I'm joined by two special guests, which I'll let them introduce themselves. But this is a special episode because, as we know, this is a very important election year. Well, every year is an important year in regards to elections, both regionally, locally, and nationally. So, you know, that's what we're going to talk about, is getting politically involved. But I got my special guest, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves right now. So, Paul, you go first.
This is Paul Davis, local Young Democrat, member of the Fairfax County Democratic Committee, as well as a community activist of sorts.
Yeah. You got any AKAs? Like, I'm Positive Filter, a.k.a. Prince of Positivity, a.k.a. Don Lemon, a.k.a. I just became the advisor for NAACP by accident. Those are my aliases. Do you have any?
AKA the Human Wikipedia, AKA.
Oh, here we go.
You know, I know it all. AKA you see me, but you didn't see me.
Ooh!
Hey, we're getting spicy tonight.
All right, that was flames. Actually, you see me, but you didn't see me. Actually, I'm gonna start. Golly, that's some flames right there. All right, we have my second special guest, my frat.
Jeez, I feel like I gotta come strong now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so go ahead with your introduction and then.
So, I am the Honorable John Taylor Chapman, City Councilman, Alexandria, Virginia. Also a Young Democrat, also a member of the Alexandria Democratic Committee. Also owner of African American tour company Manumission Tours. Also, my AKA is the Nightmare of Alexandria.
Hey.
So I'm just trying to keep up with Paul, you know what I'm saying?
Dang, the Nightmare.
Stay in these streets, that's it.
Oh my gosh.
Stay in these streets.
Oh my Lord. So they did a great introduction, dang, the Nightmare, and we got the encyclopedia, Did You See Me, Didn't See Me. So they're coming strong. So this is a bonus episode, as I said earlier, because we wanted to talk about political engagement, especially for people that are not very politically involved. Now, I'm going to start with a little transparency for me. I am an active voter every single election, but sometimes I know that I am not as informed as I should be. I never really found myself really involved as much in political, activism or politically involved in regards to being knowledgeable until recently, where as an adult, I started really taking note of what's important in the community, the schools, the roads, all these things. And then I realized, wow, you can vote for these things. you could be involved yourself, the Joe Smo. And then I realized, like, wow, just keep people are voting for things that you don't know about because you're really not paying attention. And then before you know it, there's a new school, or before you know it, there's a new playground, a new park. And you go like, who made these decisions? And we realized that that's on a local level. So then I brought in, I think about last year, we date stamped ourselves last year, Black History Month. Before that, Paul came on the podcast and explained some ways to get involved for the average Joe. And now I want to do that as a second part, but bring also the Honorable John Chapman on, because he's also a city council member, but he's also doing other things. So I want to know his experience. So just to start out, let's go back, Paul, because some people, this is first time for the episode. So Paul and John, tell us about your background and getting involved in politics. Like even from child, like I took a poli-sci class in high school, whatever. Give us that rundown.
So I've been involved in local politics since about the age of about 12 or 13. And that initially started with just, hammering signs on the side of the roadway. My mother and father were somewhat active in the local public policy realms. They were my mother is involved with community service boards, which has to do with mental health advocacy, and so through that, I kind of understood the process, and I did some research, and I realized that the politics of it was kind of more my bag. And so after graduating from JMU in 2007, on the cusp of the 2008 election, there was a African American candidate that was taking the country by storm, and so that really reinvigorated my interest in getting involved in politics. I know I wasn't going to go out to Iowa and freeze my butt off.
Yeah.
So I looked at what I could do in my local community. And so I got involved with the local committees around here. There's a complexity that is not found other places because of our proximity to Washington, D.C. And I was able to internship on the Capitol Hill. And I was also able to, just have a really lot of different great experiences, and even connected it to a career. And so now I work in local government as my daytime job, helping people out every day, constituent services, things of that nature. But also on my free time, volunteering with the political party, pushing for a more progressive agenda. In our eyes, for people that get more of the services and freedoms that we feel that will help them succeed and have better outcomes.
Excellent. That's a really good overview. So, what about you, John?
So I started in politics, I would say, honestly, once I came back from college. But prior to that, kind of like Paul's story, my mother was involved in public policy making with our local public housing authority. She was the chairwoman of the ARHA board for a number of years, so she would drag me along to those meetings, and I'd have to sit in the back, do my homework, and listen in at the same time. But when I came out of college, I really had a yearning to be involved in my hometown, and so got involved in a number of boards and commissions, as well as some nonprofit boards. And in 2012, decided to throw my hat in the ring for city council, focusing on education, which is my professional background, as well as housing and affordable housing and economic development. Was lucky enough to get chosen and elected to city council, and I'm on my third term on city council now. And so, it's a little bit about me.
So, wow. So, what I heard, is quite honestly, shout out to your parents, your moms.
Yeah,
I hear too that this foundation of political understanding started in the home.
Absolutely.
That's one. And it's just like processed by just watching. So, your parents drag you to these things. And I think if we can go back even further, I'm not on this, but my wife, her parents were always, really involved, and she was really into it, and they talk about it at the dinner table. Take us back to that. Was those the kind of discussions you had at the dinner table, like just about equal rights and, how was your day at school, and also was that kind of just brought up in normal, let's say, casual conversations for you guys at home?
I think for me, it kind of was. We talked about, I grew up in public housing. My mom did not hesitate to talk about why things were the way they were, or how to change them. And so it wasn't kind of foreign to me about how public policy worked.
Yeah.
Even at a kind of local level, or even within organizations. It might not be public policy, but policy making and policy changing within organizations. Something like when I was in college, I was involved with student government. So you're changing policy there in your school and in your student community. But it's all kind of relative based on what you're doing. But a lot of that did start with some of those conversations at home.
That's great.
For me, I would say we really didn't talk about politics growing up. Honestly, my parents kind of instilled into me and my brothers just kind of an understanding of where we came from. Never forget where our family came from. We were upper middle class family, but within our immediate family, we still had people on different levels. And so, whether it was through history, taking us to see plantations in the summertime, things like that. And so really it was just about, what can I do to build up my people? And realizing at a certain point in time that, we're not really represented in the political public policy field like we should be. But yet a lot of the outcomes that we're receiving is because, are mainly directed at us, and we're not being there represented. And so it was kind of like, well, if no one wants to step up, then like I got to do something. And now later on, they kind of gotten more engaged and talk about politics. But right now it's definitely trying to help out the overall community sense.
I love that. Now, both you guys, I would think, actively study politics or political science. What was y'all major in college?
A political science major.
What about you?
Social studies education.
Social studies education. So as you gravitated and you were learning these things, right, and you're learning about past, I'm a history major. So technically I knew about, it's funny because I know about, civil rights. And when I say no, I mean, I love history, but I never brought it to the present.
Right.
And I think that was my disconnect. So like all these things and, reading about civil rights or reading, authors that I look up to, reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, all these different things I read about, but then I never connected it to what can I do actually in the present. And I don't know, I'm just going on tangents. I go on lots of tangents on this episode. But when you thought about bringing it to the present and you said, let me take a tangible action and do something right now, based on, like you said, history. What was like the first step? Like what, when someone says, I'm tired of what's going on and I want to be politically involved, what would you say would be someone's first step?
Honestly, I would say
besides voting,
I would say showing up. I mean, honestly, someone told me, the people in the room make the decisions, right? So you just got to be in the room. And honestly, I would say, in terms of my own personal advancement, a lot of times is I've been the young guy sitting at the table, just hungry, ready to help out any way I can, and being consistent. And they remember that, and then things happen. People move on, and they say, who can do this? Who can lead this? And then you're just right there. And then as you kind of grow, you kind of form your own ideas, your own opinions, and you're able to kind of shape that and mold that within the organization you're involved in.
So you say just get in the room. And what about you?
And I would agree fully with Paul. I think the first act for me that was a super strong act that really kind of set me on the path I am was going to my first Young Dems meeting. Prior to that, honestly, for I think 6 months after I came out of college, I was just a gamer. I would go to work, come home from work, get on Halo, and spend hours and hours on that. And then I said, this is not something I want to do long term. How can I help my community? I have time. I have some talent, so let me put those to work. And found out about a Young Dems meeting, went there, and got involved based off of that. But you got to take that first step to go out and be present and be a part of things.
So you just go to meetings. I went to one at the library, and they typically take place at libraries or public places, right? And then you go there and you just show up. Kind of dumb it down for me. Like you show up these meetings, and then they say, hey, how you doing? And then they start like almost like any organization. They say, we're about to do a project. Who wants to be ahead of the project? Is that kind of how it works?
Pretty much. It depends on the organization and how they flow. I mean, you're going to go to a meeting. Hopefully, folks are going to take you in and kind of bring you into the group, to the organization, get you involved and find out what your interests are. And I think that's what happened for me. I don't know, Paul might be able to share his experience as well, but for me, that's what it was. I went not knowing really what I was getting myself into, and people were able to connect with me and say, hey, if you're interested, these are the ways you can kind of push that interest.
Yeah, I mean, I told you earlier about the NAACP for me. It's like just randomly by happenstance, you just meet people. I think the key word is meeting people, and then you just kind of say yes. You just say yes to things. So you say yes, and then when did you realize, like, wow, like you blink, and you're like, wow, like I'm in it now. When did that happen? When did it go from like I'm in my first meeting to like, wow, I'm a city council member and I'm doing that, or wow, I am, the president. Aren't you the president of the Young Dems?
Yeah.
And when did it go like, okay, I just went from my first meeting, now I'm the president of the Young Dems. Wow, I'm the city councilman. Like, when do you like realize that this was not just something I was just, from the sideline? Like, I'm in the arena now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, I think like any young professional organization, people age out. People move away, and then it's something of a nature of like you have ideas about how you feel the community should go. Just kind of going back on the previous question, a lot of the people that I've met in politics basically got involved when something in their neighborhood changed. It wasn't something. It wasn't some big existential threat from DC. It was like, hey, they're building a 7-Eleven down the street, and I want to be involved in that process.
That's it.
And because they've been involved in that process, you get to know people in your community, and then when the next go around happens, you might feel completely the opposite way, but you know the process now, you know the people now, and so people in the community kind of look up to you. So going back to this question. It's that same way. It's like I'm involved. I'm going to the meetings. I'm engaged. I'm involved. I've been around a little bit longer than the next person, right? Who's new. So you become that kind of leader of an organization. And next thing you know, you've been around for quite a long time, and you know the ways to go, and you're directing other people, and people are like looking to you to be a mentor. So it's just kind of how it goes.
I like the mentor part. We're gonna get back to that. What about you? When now you said I heard that you said earlier, like I'm doing. I'm gonna throw my what transpired. Like I'm in there. I'm on the side. Like I'm actually gonna be a representative. When did that happen?
So I first kind of figured out I really wanted to do this, and I was somewhat good at it when I became president of Alexandria Young Dems.
Oh, okay.
That's when I knew. I started to, as president, you start to make stuff happen. People come to see you, and you can really have your say. And I think that's when I kind of cranked things up a little bit more. After that, it was really looking at what needed to be done in the community. Interestingly enough, I was approached to run our local NAACP.
Hey,
and took that and kind of ran with it. As an opportunity.
But I'm not running for the mayor of Burke. Don't worry, y'all.
Not yet.
I'm stopping right now. I ain't doing none of this.
That's what he said.
I ain't doing none of this.
But no, taking that position really showed me kind of how to advocate for my community and stand up on kind of core issues that people really need to see and happening in their lives. So when I became president, that's when I started to kind of look at the city and what the city needed to have and what it was lacking and what in our elected leadership, what was there, what was not there, what perspectives we needed to add. And so as I was looking at an opportunity to run, actually at the time for school board, one of the council members said they were stepping down, and at that time they were probably the main voice on education. And so losing a person that was strong in education, I said, you know what, there's an opportunity here to be that perspective and provide that perspective along with some of the other things that I want to get done. And so that's kind of what led me to kind of throw my hat in the ring. And with anything, and Paul can probably reflect on this too, with anything, being a council member doesn't mean you automatically get it, but there's a point at being a council member when you do click and connect all the dots and can be somebody's mentor or know that you're a good council member because you know your stuff. And I've had that moment, and it's, I can actually do this. I'm not just, playing a role or whatever. I can actually make some policy happen. I can make some things get done.
Wow. And y'all both said mentors, right? Like for me, that's been the biggest thing, you know, particularly even, as a member of Alpha, I don't just call the guy that took care of me. He's my mentor. Shout out to brother Kevin Glover. And so I ask him questions.
KG.
And I ask him questions all the time. He gives me advice. I text him all the time. I mean, he literally is like and Maurice, but all these people and people older than me, and not even older. I mean, older in Alpha. You know what I'm saying? And so mentorship is very important because it's almost like it's not like they're smarter necessarily than you or whatever. They have experience, and then they just tell you their experiences, and you can relate it to yourself, right? And then eventually you look down the line and you're like, wow, I'm 2 years in, and then I'm mentoring someone else. It's like the give back thing. So who was your mentors? Who was your mentors within the politics?
For me, I would say, like I mentioned before, I work in local government, so I had the immense opportunity to work under Supervisor Kathy Hudgens, who's one of the first African American elected officials, women elected officials in Northern Virginia. Absolutely. A dynamo in terms of transportation and human services, and she had the foresight to pick a staff. Mostly African American staff, so I had the greatness to work with Martin Taylor, who did the budget, human services within her office, And Martin, like, he just from day one kind of showed me the ropes, told me, who to talk to, who not to talk to, who to watch out for. All the Jay-Z lines. He was telling me stuff, and we definitely connected too, because I have an old soul when it comes to hip hop. So I always listen to stuff that's beyond my age, and so I can reflect and
like
do
De
that.
La Soul and all that.
Oh yeah, all that stuff.
That's like my that's see, another tangent. But I remember Holbrook. I had a teacher named Holbrook, and his memo would just yell at us and say our music was trash and made us listen to De La Soul, but like in class. So that's why I just throw that out there. So shout out to him. But you connect with that, right?
Yeah, but I guess with old school hip hop, at least in certain pieces, obviously there's definitely party music, but it kind of was an ethos. Me knowing that ethos and then knowing kind of where that goes together, we kind of connected on that level. It's like we kind of community oriented, right? It was like your Public Enemy, like things like that. We were like, okay, so we were seeing where each other were. So I knew that I could come to him if I was dealing with some kind of situation, because he knows kind of where I'm coming from with some of this stuff.
Yeah, that's the part, right? Too, like I think that the mentor part is that you can come to them, and because they know where you have been. They've been in your shoes before. So it's more like, it's not just a outside teacher, it's more like that Jedi Padawan kind of. Is that how I say it? Padawan? What's
Padawan?
Padawan, yeah, you know what I'm saying? A Jedi mindset, because then eventually you're going to be the Jedi. I just feel like throwing Star Wars in there. But eventually you teach back and then you give the wisdom back, and that was the guy. And so who was yours?
So for me, it was former Alexandria Mayor Bill Ewell.
I think I met him before.
He was the first black mayor of Alexandria. Actually ended up being one of the longest serving mayors. I think served a total of maybe 15 years.
Yo,
something like that. I might get that wrong, so don't put that in stone. But
fact check.
Yeah, he definitely served over a decade, and that's not that common for Alexandria. And so he definitely had a massive effect on the city. And spent a lot of time kind of tutoring and mentoring a good number of people. I was lucky enough to be one of those people that we would spend a lot of time talking about policy, talking about the city, talking about the city of the past, city of the future, and I think that led a lot in my growth. And I think the thing that was kind of the most powerful in our relationship was he opened a number of doors for me and kind of brought me into events and put me at tables where I had no business being. You know what I mean?
Oh, he brought you to the big boy table for the kiddie
table. Absolutely.
Like,
and so being able to, I don't know about certain events. He's going to and bringing me. He's like, John, what are you doing this afternoon? I'm like, nothing. Well, be here at 5:30. We're going over here. We're going to meet these folks, and and that's what it was. And so that was invaluable for me, because I'm meeting people I have no business meeting, that I would not come across, even though they live in the same city I live in.
That's interesting.
And so I think that was huge for kind of my political growth and understanding the city that I grew up in.
Now, what about? Did you seek him out? And did you seek him out, or you like saw him? Because this is how I think about mentors, right? Is I always look for people ahead of me in life, and I say, and maybe not too far away, like not like the president or CEO, but maybe like the middle manager. I'm just making an analogy. I'm like, wow, like that's someone that's 2-3 steps ahead of me. I'm going to ask them questions because I can get there more realistically, right? And then I reach out to them, and it's not like date me, like, would you be my mentor, yes or no, checkbox. But it's more like, hey, I really admire what you're doing. Do you have a few minutes of time for me to ask you questions? And I usually am the one that reaches out, and then I also, to reciprocate, say if there's anything I can do to help you, and they always like, yo, you know about pot, like I offer some kind of value add to them. Yeah. Did you seek him out, or did he say, hey, I like you, come talk to me?
No, so I definitely sought him out. I was involved in politics, and so you run across all these politicians, and you talk like you're just talking about. You talk to everybody and say, "Hey, do you have time to chat about this issue or that issue?" And depending on who gives you time, who you feel is open. I felt that he not only gave me time, we'd talk whenever. He'd be like, "Hey, let's go grab a drink at Joe Theismann's, his favorite restaurant, and chat and talk on all hours of the night, whatever." I think that was kind of what strengthened our kind of mentor-mentee relationship. But yeah, I definitely tried to seek it out. Like you said, you find that person that's, several steps ahead of you, has the experience and a perspective that you want to gain and reach out to them.
Yeah, it's dope. And I was saying, well, yours on a commit. I mean, she was working, and she's like, I got a team. She
But
put you on a team.
relationships are definitely the currency of political work. And for me, I'm just by nature just more cautious about that kind of stuff, like being open to people. And so I'm looking at how you interact with other people, right? Like, how do you, like, what's in your character? How do you, and like, what are you actually doing this for? Because, a lot of people give you advice, right? But, where are they coming for? Like, do you want a favor down the line? Like, are they being more truthful? Are they, like, really trying to uplift somebody because they got an opportunity? And so, I was able to, identify, luckily. And the thing about it too is, like, there's just not, just speaking from an African American standpoint, there's just not a lot of people doing this work.
Yes.
And so, and the ones that are, we all got war stories. We all got war stories.
Yeah.
And things that have happened to us, or things people say, or people treat us a certain way because we're just different in this environment. We stand out.
Yeah.
And so when I found somebody, I was like, I'm gonna grab on because
it's a black person. There's a black person in politics.
That's higher than me.
It's higher than me.
So they stuck with it, right?
Yes.
And they're trying to move up, and that's important.
That's really important. I like that too, because I was going to add to that. I mean, it's not just a person. Like I said, someone else like me that can put I'm not going to reach out to some person. Like, I literally look for, like, just in general for higher ed, right? I'm like, wow, that's a assistant dean. That's a man of color. I'm a man of color. I'm in higher ed. Boom. Let me just ask some questions.
Right.
And it's like, and then I do the flip side. I was like, I see these college kids on campus. I was like, I was in college. I'm black. Let me help them. And you're right. I think the intention is, what is their intention? Like, am I helping these young men on campus because I want them to give me money later? No. I think technically in my mind, it's more like, man, I'm putting more on because I remember what that felt like.
Yeah.
It's more like, I remember what that felt like. I'm pretty sure your mentor is like, I remember what it felt like trying to have a seat at the table and no one gave me a seat. So what I'm doing is I got mine and I'm like actually pulling up a chair. Because I know what that feels like, to not feel like you belong. It's not just diversity; it's diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'm here, but I also want to feel included.
Right.
So I'm gonna make someone else feel included. So that's pretty remarkable. And then you got on, you're doing these things. Now, you touched upon, there's so many issues in politics, and I know you gravitated to education. I think that as I look at the overall themes of NAACP, they have like health and this. I think that's the one I gravitate to, well, because I believe that education is the access to wealth, access to health. I mean, you're educated, you get that. You're educated, you can get a job. I think that's just me. I love education. I'm in education. I'm in higher ed, so I believe in that. But there's so many pockets. Tell us some of the overall, like, main categories for politics, and then the ones that you individually gravitated to, like you graduated to education, and tell us why. And then you tell us which one, all those pockets, and which one you gravitated to.
I know he'll bring it up later, but affordable housing is a huge issue in Northern Virginia. And it really, affordable housing has really gone from, a safety net type of issue to, like, your flavor of your community, and how you're gonna keep your community going in the future. And we're not just talking about the individuals at the lowest levels. We're talking about firefighters and teachers, and people who have good jobs that the region has just become almost unbearable for them to live in terms of housing and how that influences people.
Now that's, for the educating for me, what does the term affordable housing mean? It's not just low income housing. What does it mean? What is overall the affordable housing mean?
So the term affordable housing has a federal meaning. It is 60% of what's called area median income. So AMI.
Okay. I know that. Okay.
Roughly, I don't know what Fairfax is. I know in Alexandria, area median income is around think it was 120 something
per household, 120,000.
Yeah, 120,000, and so
That's the middle.
So for four people,
4 people, yeah.
4 people in a
So
house.
4 people in a house. So
The whole income is
we're gonna break this down for people that like
no doubt.
that are like really like don't know politics
It's that
or
important.
math.
It's
Yep.
that important.
So there's a family of 4,
Family
maybe
of 4.
Let's say a traditional home,
Yep.
wife, husband, 2 kids.
Yep.
Wife, husband, 2 kids. You're the median, right? That's the middle one.
That's the
the
median.
average.
Mhm.
The average is 120.
Yep.
That means 2 working parents making 60,000.
Yep.
Let's say that.
Yep,
even.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. How's that affect the
And
house?
so,
What's that mean for
that's the
money?
area median income, and so
Yeah.
the federal guidelines are based along that. And so, affordable housing usually focuses on 60% or lower of area median income, and so that means those
So
that
60%.
family of
So 50% is 60,000. So 60% is maybe like 70,000 for that family
Right.
of 4.
That's right.
I'd say roughly 70,000.
Yep. And so
Okay,
you're looking
wow.
at that for affordable housing. For what they call workforce housing, that can go from 80 to 60%, something like that.
That makes
And
sense.
then market rate is roughly 80 to 100% or 120%, like something like that.
So quick math. I know some people that make jobs, right? I'm looking at my friends. Entry jobs out of college, right? And they only making 40,000.
Affordable housing.
And then the other person, their boyfriend, girlfriend making 40. That's only 80.
Boom. Yeah.
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 You can't afford nothing. I'm thinking
That's
about
right.
rent. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
You're barely making
so
it.
like that we're doing math, but like at the end of the day, if we really broke it down to like the normal person, I'm thinking about the normal person that's out of high school, or I mean not out of high school, out of college. They get their first big boy job. I remember mine was only $33,000.
Yep.
$33,000. My wife, she had a master's, so she had a better job, and we had to live in an apartment. And the apartment's rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in Kingstown was $1,500.
Yeah. Sounds right.
And that's crazy. Because
Yeah.
I was like, that's not even that nice. It was Kingstown. And
You gotta think, bro, and you
and
gotta
then
think
I couldn't even, we looked at the house, I was like, oh my gosh. You know?
And you got to think what you said right there is not always the norm, because you're coming out of college. How about those folks who didn't even go to college, folks
Yes.
that are just coming straight out of high school into the working world? I mean, they might not even get, sometimes they might not even get $30,000. And then, if they have a spouse or girlfriend or whatever, and kids, how are you managing that?
Oh my God.
Whether it's Kingstown, whether it's Alexandria, whether it's
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Prince William,
Yes.
and the farther you get, the cheaper it usually is.
Yes.
But as we know, you got transportation costs. And so
And we
what's the
had
cost of that car? What's the cost of
gas?
metro? What's the cost
Metro.
of gas? What's the cost of anything?
Tied on that policies too, right? Like,
And the policies for public transportation, they're going to set the rates of how much the Metro card costs or how much the bus fare costs.
well, further out, they're not even in the WMATA system.
Right, that's right.
But yet there are people who still use it.
Oh, yeah.
But not even the policy in the sense of, okay, I'm not saying that people in Northern Virginia are, inside the Beltway are more enlightened than other people,
Yes.
but we recognize that certain realities exist because of the cost of living here.
Yes.
If you don't even take that into consideration with your policy making, you're not set up for transportation. You're not set up for human services. And so people are rippling out further and further to communities that have never had to deal with that ever before. Don't have the staff to deal with it.
Right.
Just don't know, school systems don't know how to deal with it. Like,
I'm saying you're right. Like
They don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
We're talking about transportation. We're talking about housing.
yeah,
If you don't have those
the further out,
infrastructures-
the further out, there's no Metro.
yeah.
So you have to get around by car.
Or bus. Just
Or bus.
regular bus, yeah.
And that takes you forever to get to work, and then it affects your work day. It's like
Absolutely.
a ripple effect.
Oh, it definitely is.
So
It definitely is.
so as a key political thing, I see that can be in affordable housing is a very not staple, but I feel like you're right.
No, you're right. It is.
like-
It is a staple.
I
It
think there's
absolutely
one.
is. a
And then
staple.
there's education too. Like I
Yeah.
think in my mind, I'm thinking big picture. Like if you can't go and get good books in school and
Kids can't eat.
and then you can't test or you can't test as well, then you don't get into college. And I see the long term thing too.
That's what it is.
So it's like all these things you see like the bigger picture
Oh, yeah.
and the small picture. But at the end of the day, which is the crazier part, is that you realize that someone votes on something that's like, oh, it's just a Metro fare or whatever. Like you don't see how like the Metro fare equals this, the person go to work. It's like almost like that butterfly effect or whatever. Like one little pebble in the water is gonna make a big wave that
It
you
does.
didn't realize the magnitude of that.
Well,
No,
and-
it definitely does.
in terms of advocacy too, the people who actually
Yeah.
like live and die by decisions never there. Hardly ever there. Hardly, they don't send emails. They don't make phone calls. They are hardly ever available to where these decisions are, to say, like, this is my personal story, and let the elected officials know. Like, generally speaking, they're just not.
Well, they probably working.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
I was about to say they probably
That's
working.
exactly what's going on.
What you mean? How am I going to come to a meeting if it takes me an hour to get on there from the bus, and I'm making my job the salary?
And you got to pick up your kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many pieces to that. I think that's why you see local governments trying to bend over backwards to engage people.
Yes.
Because they know it's tough for folks to just take 2-3 hours out of their evening and go to a meeting.
Yes.
They have so much other stuff to do, but it's so important to try to engage them, try to get them at the table, try to let them know about issues that are coming up, big and small, because like you said, even those small ones can still have a genuine effect on their standard of life.
Do you ever think about that? Like, I mean, sometimes I'm if I'm the president of anything, I'm the president of the Overthinker Club. like card carrying member. Like I can like nerd out and just be like this, and before you know it, I'm thinking about the moon base that I want to live on.
No, I mean,
it's like, so how do you think about the small things that you're voting for, but not get carried away and thinking like, the doomsday scenarios in regards to politics? Because I can go there, right? Like, this is this and this is so terrible. It's all trash. How do how do you keep yourself, and this is positive filter, how do you keep yourself in an optimistic mindset in regards to these things?
So I do it in two ways. I look at the policy and the on paper effects it can have. If we say, for instance, you're talking about, bus fare, if we're making a rate change or we're working with a community that's making a rate change, what's the effect of that 50-cent increase or a dollar increase or whatever over a much longer span? Not just the one-time increase because, I'm using the bus today. That person that uses the bus 7 days a week, at least twice a day, that increase is a much larger than just a dollar increase. And what does that mean in an economy where wages aren't going up as high as costs are?
Right.
I mean, that's one of the bigger, if you want to go down a rabbit hole in terms of policy, you start talking about wage policy and the fact that we're so far behind in wages and just regular wages, whether it's minimum wage or kind of your average
when
salary.
You say we, are you talking about Northern Virginia or we?
I'm talking about country. I'm talking about the country.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't want to go down there.
And it's even, it's even more. It's a lot tougher in urban areas like Northern Virginia in this region because you have competition. So that doesn't necessarily drive wages up. That usually just keeps them more stagnant. But your costs are going up because there's a lot of competition out there, whether it's housing, whether it's education, public or private, and transportation, all the areas. Competition is real on the consumer end, but we're not seeing the competitiveness of wages increase on kind of the employer end.
Oh my goodness!
I would just say to me at least, one of the hallmarks of this guy sitting next to me is principles. He is a principled individual.
Thank you, brother.
And
I thought you were about to say principles in school.
No. And this is key. This is a key part because when you're decision making, right, it could go a wrong way, right? But as long as you articulate where you are as a person and where you stand, and people know that going into the decision making, and you stick to that. And if you decide to change and you explain why you decided to change in an articulate manner, that matters to people. And he's been throwing a lot of different things in terms of affordable housing and economic development that's occurring in his city. But he is stuck to his proverbial guns on these issues and articulate it throughout all this changing things. And that matters. The people who stick to what they believe and they are able to continue to articulate it, even if when things get worse, that matters to people. And so that's kind of what keeps people from going down that rabbit hole in terms of decision making is you have to have a core set of principles.
Yeah, that's true.
And I personally believe, I think you would too, that we're doing it for the people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you keep that in the forefront.
That's right.
And then your decision making is going to bear out. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's money in politics is real.
It
It is
Yeah,
real.
I mean, money is in everything. Money's in education. Money's in everything. Money's in decisions. That's how things are made.
But I think to that point, I mean, money's in everything. But I think as long as you stick to your guns, you're not going to let the money affect you as much. You have a number of people that when we talk Alexandria politics, folks talk about developers and how they kind of integrate into that system. But at the end of the day, for me, it's all about affordability of housing.
Yeah.
I could take $100 from a developer and not blink, because I know and they know that I'm going to be pushing for affordable housing. They might not like what comes out of my mouth. They choose to support me or not. I'm still going to be there. I'm still going to be fighting for people. I'm still going to be fighting for housing, regardless of who support I have.
Okay, so that leads me to my other point. Have you ever have your thoughts and ideas, and then had unexpected opposition to something you thought was a good idea, as opposed to like you say, hey, this is gonna be 50 cents, and then some guy say, no, I want it to be 75 cents, and you're like, what? I didn't even know that was a thing that you're like, it came out of left field. You're like, why does this person even care about 75 cents? I'm just giving you an example. Like, have you ever had something where you thought it was a good idea and someone just threw you a curveball?
All the time.
And you're like, I don't even know why.
Yeah, all the time.
And then you're like, and then maybe you're thinking about that curveball as in, for me, this is probably why I would never get in politics, like as an individual, because I'm a F, like a feeler, E and F, whatever. So I get in my feelings very easily, and I can understand that certain things, regardless of politics, is politics and business. People say it's separation of that, right? But I don't have a separation. Like, I'm too soft. I like people. So how do you also, with that opposition or someone across the aisle, they're not attacking you individually. They just think your idea is trash. Like, I don't know, but not you. You're not trash. They think your idea is trash. How do you deal with that?
I mean, I think it's kind of what Paul said. I think you have to stick to your guns. You have to stick to your basic principles and say, I'm standing on this side of the argument for these reasons, and be able to talk about those reasons and hopefully educate people on the opposite side about why you're doing it and why you think it's beneficial. We have things come at us all the time where people don't necessarily agree with us, but I put my boots on and say, hey, I'm going to stand strong on this issue, and this is why. I hope you can join me on it. If you can't, talk about why not. We can see if there's an opportunity to compromise. If there isn't, I'm going to be over here and you're going to be over there, and we'll agree to disagree.
A term that you hear a lot in our industry is NIMBYism, not in my backyard. And that happens a lot of times where people, they don't necessarily disagree with a new shopping center. They just don't want it next to them. Or they don't disagree with this new bus route going down that road. They just don't want it on their road. And a lot of times it is an education piece. And sometimes we just agree to disagree. And we just have to do what's the greater good. I mean, there's a lot of pieces now. We're talking a lot in the government field about equity. That's being played more and more into the conversation. And if you can look at all public policy decisions, a lot of them in the past, like redlining, things of that nature, we're just where you're making winners and losers. The government is making winners and losers, and the government shouldn't be in that position to make winners and losers like that. And so I think some people have been used to being in a process where they feel like they can manipulate it to get the outcomes that they want, regardless of who they impact. But I think we're coming kind of in a new day in terms of that. Where everybody is going to have an opportunity to weigh in on these decisions and help kind of create a more inclusive community overall.
That's crazy. So we're hitting up, I'll try to keep my episodes an hour. So we have some important key dates and some things to think about. So we have a major election. That's why we had this bonus episode in the first case. So, what are some of the significance about this upcoming election, and just in general, why are the little I think this is not the election obviously for presidential candidate, but why is this election very important? And can you explain to the common listener why these type of elections are important as in addition to presidential elections?
Well, how about I go just over the overview of the election, and you can explain the importance of the General Assembly.
I like that system. Yeah.
So basically, this is the 2019 election. It's going to be your state and local offices. That's your state senate, your House of Delegates, your board of supervisor, if you're in that particular the county system, your Commonwealth attorney, your sheriff, your soil and water board of conservation. Now, these are individuals that have the utmost impact on your daily life, even more so than the federal government does. And so this is what this election is. And this election also is really low turnout. I've forgot one important one, school board. It's a school board as well. So this is the low turnout election, but all state and local offices, but they have a ginormous impact on your daily life. And you kind of explain the General Assembly, how it impacts what you guys do.
So for us in Alexandria, we have a little bit of a different voting schedule. So we did a lot of our local offices actually last year. So our school board and our board, our city council and school board were done last year. This year we do have our constitutional officers. So our clerk. That's right. We also have our clerk of courts that is on the ballot as well as state delegate and state senator. And those positions in our General Assembly, so for the Democrats, so they've been kind of pushing to try to take over or have the majority of the seats in the General Assembly, the House, for the last, I want to say maybe 15 years.
Yeah.
It's been something like that. I think when.
Slow grind, yeah.
And so, this is probably, people are kind of guessing this is one of the opportunities for that to actually happen, depending on how the different elections go. And so that's why I think for both parties, it's a very important year. Because they have to get out their people. As Paul was saying, these unfortunately are lower turnout elections because you don't have kind of the statewide governor, the lieutenant governor, attorney general on the ballot, or of course presidential, which brings out pretty much everybody.
Yes.
You have the very local offices, and so you have I wouldn't say smaller campaigns, but more, hopefully, usually more focused campaigns on the voting public and who comes out to vote. And so campaigns will kind of turn their energy to those known voters. And if you're not a known voter, you might not get all of the emails, all of the mail.
I was about to say, I get some stuff. How do I
you might get some stuff, but you might not get everything. And so for some folks, they don't always find out all the information that they want to know to be comfortable to vote. And
I like
that's,
that. Okay.
That's part of the challenge.
Well, I don't like that, but I understand. So how do you become a known voter? Because I feel like I get stuff in my mailbox.
So you said you do?
I get the postcards in my
Right.
mailbox,
That's right.
and I get these random emails.
Because you come out and vote. I mean,
how they know that?
Well, it's also been there's a file, there's a voter file. It's free to everybody. Yep. It records your votes. It doesn't record your actual votes. It just records if you went to the poll.
Right.
It doesn't tell you what it is, and then people use algorithms. It's political science. They use algorithms to figure out whether or not you're a Democrat or Republican based on where you voted at. They take some guesses, take some liberties. That zip code, when you go to Burlington Coat Factory, that plays into it too, if you want to get to the political science aspect of it. They take all that information and they got a file, and then they figure out.
So I got a file on me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does it know what I look like with a picture?
No.
Okay.
But it has your address.
I'm about to turn Alexa off.
That's the next one.
But Alexa gonna know how I vote.
But the Democratic Party for the last couple of years has been a lot of their goals is to expand the voter network.
That's right.
And so the postcards are basically like, we want to get more people. So, we don't know what you're going to do, but if we give you a poke, we'll see what happens.
Right.
And then you might become somebody.
That's a good way to put it.
And that's what they've been doing. And it's been an effort. And Obama his campaign was the last watershed where they expanded the voter electorate. by bringing in new people. Bernie Sanders did it as well. They brought in new people who aren't in part of the process.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, that information is compiled in the voter file, and at least that's a starting place for the next campaign.
Got it. See, I mean, because I am getting emails, and I'm getting random emails, and they're not spam, so they come in my normal inbox, and then I am getting the postcards, so they know I'm a voter, and so I'm getting engaged. So now I am engaged because you're right. Like it's like almost like, oh, what? Who's that? And I don't even, like, sometimes you'd be like, I don't even, like, I'll see someone's name, and I'm like, why do I know that name? It's because you looked at a card, you looked at it real quick, and threw it in the trash, but then that thing is stuck in your brain. So they got me. Someone got me know their name.
And
I know who their name
every
is.
campaign we refine it, right? So maybe next time somebody's gonna come knock on your door. They're gonna canvass you, and then this is say like because you're a likely voter in this particular area, so we might not have any data on you. So we're gonna go find out like what do you actually believe in, right? And you might be like, well, I don't believe what the Democrats do with this, and this, but this is where I believe. And then they'll take that note down and say like, well, he's really strong on criminal justice reform. And so then they'll start to key in on those particular issues for you because it's all science. Like it's
psychology, science, whatever, consumer, all this stuff is like the brain is very interesting how it works.
But
and what you think.
One part I want to mention too about the General Assembly is it ties into 2020. All those things you see your presidential candidates saying they're going to do, they need the General Assembly to do it.
Okay.
You want to decriminalize marijuana? The General Assembly is going to have to do the legwork on that.
Right.
The federal government's going to do their part, but the General Assembly are the ones that are going to have to actually figure out the nuts and bolts of how it's going to work in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Free college, all that type of stuff. The General Assemblies are going to be the individuals that got to figure out how to actually do that. The federal government is going to give them possibly money, maybe a guide way how to do it, but the people on the ground are in the General Assembly. And so you have situations where you might have a liberal president or a liberal governor, but the House is Republican and conservative.
It just gets knocked down.
It's stalemate. It's stalemate to the next election, essentially. And so that's why this election is important because if regardless of what you think or who's gonna, it's whoever's in that middle is going to reflect what the outcome on the ground is going to be.
Got it.
And so, but people generally don't look at it that way.
They just see the big dog at top. But they don't see that.
Right.
They're like, hey, this guy's saying all this stuff on TV, but they don't realize that this county person is the one saying yes or no.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's very interesting. And I think you think about that when you think about systems, the teachers are the ones teaching the kids, but the principal, everyone thinks about the principal, but who's actually having the influence on the kids?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's having the influence on the kids every day? The teacher.
Right.
And so you think about that, like in that level part, you think about that, but it's hard to think about because you only see the person at the top. You see the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Right.
No one sees the below the iceberg or whatever. That is crazy. So these dates, I remember, Paul, let's get us back into what we talked about last time. How can the average person know, remember we said some websites, let's take some of those resources. How does the average person know what issues are being voted on? What are some normal websites besides Google that people can just bookmark and start just kind of, I listen to podcasts. I listen to, first, what's it called? Up First, it's a little quick one, so I know what's going on in the news. How can someone just kind of get themselves educated but not overwhelmed?
Well, in terms of your local and state, your obviously your paper record, your local papers. Now they've kind of gone to local blogs. They cover the kind of the day-to-day work that's happening in your community. Also, your county government, your city government has an office of elections. They're the ones that are in order to they help facilitate the elections in your community. But as part of that, they do things like put together sample ballots. Yes. So the sample ballot literally is giving you what the ballot on election day is going to look like. So if you're really shaky, on a test taking, they give you what it's going to look like. Yes. You can read the questions ahead of time. You can see what it's looked like. All you have to do is that day fill in what you need to fill in. So particularly about this year's ballot, flip it over because it's going to be in Fairfax County. It's going to be two-sided. And so get to know and all this information is at fairfaxcounty.gov/elections, I believe.
Yes.
But if you type in elections in the search field on fairfaxcounty.gov, it will take you to their page. But look at the sample ballots. You're going to see some offices that you probably don't know what they do.
Yeah,
so the Soil and Water Conservation Board is the one, and these individuals are in charge of basically maintaining the water table in the community, and making sure that we don't have mudslides and sinkholes and things of that nature. Your constitutional officers, your sheriff, your Commonwealth attorney. If you're big into people getting unjustly incarcerated, Commonwealth attorney is a very important person. And so read up on that. There's been a big sea change here in Fairfax County about that. If you're interested in individuals that are more liberal, you should probably look into what's happening here in Fairfax County, in Arlington County, and Prince William County. There's a sea change in terms of Commonwealth attorneys.
Do they have a thing where it has not only the positions but position descriptions and what they do? Like for the average man, like the conservation person, he will vote on, like he's responsible for like the parks. I don't know, just something very common, so it's very digestible what they do.
Yeah.
Because I know what a principal, you can say I know what a principal does. I know what just some like a glossary or something.
Well, I can tell you this from a partisan standpoint. The local Democratic Party has developed a tool like that. Obviously, though, that's only going to be the Democratic candidates that they're going to be giving information to.
Yeah.
But there's tools like that. The nonpartisan one would be the Office of Elections.
Office of Elections. Okay.
That's the one that's going to provide that information about what the basic idea is.
The basic ideas. Yeah.
Also, another good organization that is nonpartisan is going to be the League of Women Voters. They do
League of Women and Voters.
League of Women Voters.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes for people.
They focus on that being that nonpartisan gap to educate people about voting, educate people about candidates. They usually hold candidates forums as well. Okay, and so a nonpartisan group is that.
Absolutely.
I just want people, because I can't. I have my political beliefs, and we have our shared beliefs. But also, I just think that before you go gung ho and say I'm just going to be this because this is my identity, I think we should also know what people do. I think I want to be more educated, and so I'm doing that. So I'm gonna bookmark these things and read. Like I said, I don't want it to be super in the weeds, but I at least want to know this guy will do this guy will do this, or woman, whatever, this person will do this. I just want to know what their job title is. I like to read I'm in colleges, right? So I'm helping the kids know new jobs. So when I look at their jobs that they're applying for, I like to read the position description. So I know hey man, your day to day is you'll be doing this, this, and this, and it helps me you need to know this and this, and these are the software or whatever. So I do like to read position descriptions, and so I know what people do, what their duties are. Duties include, responsibilities include, and the minimum qualities, you must have a master's, you must have, maybe for these positions, you must be involved in politics for 3 years or something like that. I like to read those.
I would say VPAP.org too is a good one. VPAP is an organization that tracks donations going to candidates, so you can see who's donated to these candidates. But it also tracks issue and policy decisions from individuals and kind of gives you the map of their territory. Is good. And then Ballotpedia is another one.
Ballotpedia?
Yeah, which you can go to and kind of provides information about term limits and positions. But like that, just kind of give you more information. But also going back to the ballot, I know a lot of people get spooked about the word questions, right? And these are bonds.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because those things are just full paragraphs, and you're just I don't know, and you just pick one.
Yeah.
Right. How did you educate on those? Because those are very wordy, and I heard that's kind of a technique on purpose because they know people ain't gonna read.
Partially, so there's two parts of it. So one is there are legal requirements that they have to put into that paragraph that have to be there by law. But they are also by law mandated to do what they call plain English version. And that plain English version is usually on the website where they talk about what the actual what it is boiled down to. But most of these things boil down to this: the government has X amount of dollars they can spend every single year.
Yep.
But like a mortgage to a house, sometimes you have bigger projects like rebuilding schools, firehouses, that kind of community centers that you need more money at a longer term. Yes. So usually these paragraphs have to do with bonds, and basically saying, will you let the government essentially get into a mortgage to pay for this list of projects?
Yeah.
And usually people are like, I don't know anything about it, so I'm gonna vote no about it. But my personal belief is the government has too much money and they should go within their means. And it's not really saying that we're going outside of our means, because most governments have physical policies that say you can't have debt levels at a certain level. Right. So they're not going outside their means. They just need you. I can't get all my tax money for the next 30 years from you this year.
Right.
So I need to spread it out some. And that's a mechanism that the governments have to build long-term projects, the larger projects that communities need. You need a new police station. You need a new fire station. Right. You need a new school, high school. Those things cost millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. And so the plain English version is on the web. Take time to read about it, because usually it's a set of projects that are usually in your own community that you can link to and say, okay, this question is connected to this middle school down the street from my house. So it's like,
and that's where website is that on?
That's on the elections website. The government.
We're gonna put that in the elections website. We need people read it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And you have time to read it, because we're gonna release this way before November. So you got a little bit of chance to read real quick.
Perfect.
And so you in the city of Alexandria, did they do similar things too with the big paragraphs and all that?
We do. Usually those are kind of state level laws and changes. As it relates to the bonds, we as an independent city don't have to necessarily do those bonds by referendum. So we don't necessarily have to take those to the folks. But they come up as a campaign issue every year, because people want to know, are you going to spend money? What are you going to spend money on? How much is it, and what's that going to cost? And so there's still that conversation around new schools, new municipal buildings, and those kind of investments in infrastructure. And so we just don't do it kind of through referendum. For example, we had a council meeting last night where we approved some government bonds that we want to put out to the market, because we know we're going to have those needs in terms of building schools in the next couple of years.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, we shared a lot of information, but we're not going to end this show without my shot for shot. And now we got 3 guys. I figured out how to do it with this. So Paul knew about the shot for shot. This is where we get to ask each other random questions. But now that we have 2 guests, I figured out, I've done this before, is that, Paul, you get to ask me and John 2 random questions. I get to ask you 2 random questions, and then someone gets to ask 2. So everyone gets to ask 2 questions to everyone else. So who wants to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so you said you talked to this dude about the old school hip-hop. Mm-hmm. What were 2 artists or groups that you talked about? And did you ever get in an argument with him and said this dude was trash?
Yeah. So we talked about, Tribe Called Quest is, to me, a foundation group. Mm-hmm. And then, I'm trying to remember what arguments we had. Nas and Jay-Z.
Yes,
that's a general one.
So who was on whose side?
I can't remember who was on.
You was on.
I'm a Nas guy, so.
Did you think he won on Ether?
I think so.
Oh.
I think.
I don't know.
He put in some strong work on Ether.
Didn't he call him like a camel in the face or something?
Well,
like that?
I think the beat, to me, did him no justice. If you go find the Knife Wonder remix of Ether that he did, it's clearer. And you can hear the whole word, and it's better.
Deeper.
It was a lot deeper than the one that they put out there. Right. And so
okay. First of all, I'm gonna put that as a poll question. I want to see what people think, and I'm mad they took it off Facebook. I'm gonna put it on Instagram. Did you think who won, Jay-Z or Nas? Okay, good. All right, John, I got one for you. Mm-hmm. So you're a local Alexandria guy, right? Mm-hmm. Let's go back in the day. If I know I did some research. You went to St. Albans, is that correct?
No, St. Stephen's.
St. Stephen's, that's what I meant. Yeah. If St. Stephen's right now played T.C. Williams in basketball, who would win? Let's flip it. And then if they did,
that's an easy question.
Okay, go down. Okay, how about this? I'm gonna do more than one sport. I'm gonna
kill that question right now. So last year, St. Stephen's beat the mess out of TC.
In what sport?
Basketball.
Okay,
they invited them to the tournament.
How about
we have
lacrosse?
An annual tournament. We crushed them in lacrosse too.
How about soccer?
We're nationally ranked in lacrosse.
How about soccer?
Soccer, men's or women's? Which one? Boys or girls? Which one do you want?
I'm gonna do both.
Ooh, they'd get us in boys soccer, I think. I think they're pretty strong.
Yeah, I know
there.
they're legit now.
Girls soccer, I don't know.
How about track?
TC.
They fast.
TC. They got
And then they got
some
swim. Okay,
some rollers.
so we see the challenge. It was called public versus private school. I want to see that. They play again, or they just randomly play each other?
So last year was the first time I remember that TC came over and played us during the season. We have an opening season tournament, the Sleepy Thompson tournament.
Right.
We played TC first round. And I was talking a lot of trash to a lot of Alexandria folks.
You were talking
because
to Grip?
usually,
you know Grip, right?
Oh yeah.
Was he talking smack to you?
No, he knew better than that. Not last year. Not with TC's team. I'm sorry. Our team last year was strong.
Yes.
And I don't say that just because I'm a St. Stephen's alumni. These jokers were in top. I think they got the top 10 in Washington Post.
That was
because they were balling. I mean, and they wrecked TC. So I got time to talk for a little minute
there it go.
on that for a little while.
Sheesh. All right, that's flames. All right, who wants to go next to ask the two questions? You get to ask two questions to us.
I'll go last.
I know.
All right.
For you, Phil, I know you're a skins guy.
No.
What is the one resolution that the skins could do to kind of turn out around this season?
They're done. It's trash. the resolution is they need to get rid of Dan Snyder. That's the resolution.
Yeah.
Clean house. We're trash. And I feel like I just don't know any better. I have no other team. Like I'm too far in. This has been a lifetime. You see me, I'm wearing the pants.
I saw that.
I literally have a love-hate relationship. I would say have you ever watched the Muppets? Mm-hmm. You know those two old guys? Mm-hmm. That's me and my dad when we go to games.
Oh, I can
what we thought they're trash. Even I am a proactive hater. So right when they lose, I send my friends the memes of how bad the Redskins are. I send the memes before they can send them to me. So I have a whole list of memes. So you say turn around. I think it's an organization turnaround, but it's done for this year. We're done. Stick a fork in it. I am going to the game, though. I'm going to the 49ers game just because I'm a glutton for punishment.
I would say if the one thing that we can do, and there's not very much that we can do, because I agree with you. I mean, the season's pretty much cooked.
No.
Jay Gruden can't play. He can't
he going to
make plays, make calls. He can't do that. He's not a good play caller at all. No. At all. No. We get in the red zone and we're gonna pass. We're gonna pass on the 2-yard line. What?
He's got the
come on, man.
He got the Pete Carroll playbook.
It's ridiculous.
AP one of the greatest running backs. Even at his age right now, he's one of the greatest.
He's going from the Pete Carroll playbook.
He's got to be. He's got to be going off of something. I mean, how do you first week out you bench AP? You don't just not start him. You bench him. And then put all your eggs in a basket for guys.
Can I be honest?
I
haven't watched a full football game in 2 years because of my kids, and I feel like I'm not missing much.
Nah, you're not.
I catch a quarter. I catch a quarter. I catch 2 quarters. I did go I sat down physically and watched the whole game, and we lost last season. But I really don't feel like I feel like it's just a distant. I feel like I'm only a Redskin fan, and this sounds bad. I'm a Redskin fan for nostalgia. I enjoy Thanksgiving. I enjoy watching the games with my dad. It's more for me. I really do not think they're a good team. That they're not. But I enjoy root for them because it's memories with my dad. So I'm too far. Like I said, I told you I'm too far gone. Mm-hmm. I can't just up and say, hey, I'm a Cowboys fan or some other fan, because then I don't know. So I'm just going to ride this ship. I just had this vision. I told someone earlier, I don't know if I told you this. I had this vision that I'm 80 years old. I'm in a wheelchair. Or maybe not. I'm healthy at 80. But I'm still old. And my 2 boys take me to the Super Bowl. And I watch them win the Super Bowl. But that's when they did it, when I'm 80. It's like that commercial, the Visa commercial. You know what I'm saying? I did it. We did it. I lived a lifetime for this. And then they win, and that's it. They never win again. All right, you got another question? There you go.
This is gonna be a weird one. All right, so as a hip hop kid, like I said, in this kind of a amateur sneakerhead, what type of shoe as a counselor? You're on your feet all day. You're moving around. Like what kind of shoe do you wear that's comfortable, like a dress shoe? Kind of like what's your staple? Like I saw Tim Kaine one time. It looked like he was wearing Postman shoes. I was like, maybe that's the thing. Like I didn't know.
Nah, that's not the move.
Well, shout out. Okay, I'm about to do shout out. First of all, I'm gonna hear your shoe, but shout out to Tim Kane's wife because she's my friend. Employee of the month. Holla at your boy. You ever see? She does this like West Virginia dancing style. I don't know. It's called. It's like I can't remember the name of it, but she got footwork. So I guess her shoe game is better. I can't remember. It's gonna come to me. It's some West Virginia, like it's almost like Lord of the Dance, but they do it in West Virginia. That's it. That was random, but I know her footwork is good though. I seen it. They be busting out this. Okay. It's like river dance.
So I pulled up all the different types of men's dress shoes. So the best ones I think that are just clean are Oxfords. You get some nice. Oxfords, they always look good. If you can get some low cut Brooks. They got a little bit of style to them. Yeah. You can rock with that, and you're not rocking postman shoes.
Yeah, please screenshot this because I'm gonna put this on the joint too. Okay. And say which ones you rock with.
And then of course, loafers. You can't. I don't think anything
I like boat shoes.
Beats loafers. Or which one did you say?
I like boats.
Oh, boats. I mean, if you're casual, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a solid shoe. I mean, it is definitely has a little prep to it.
I like the loafers too because I can't tie my shoelaces. and these, what's it called? How you pronounce these?
Oh, I've never.
Esmeraldas?
Yeah.
They look like Vans. I'm just gonna call them.
They do look.
I'm calling them Spanish Vans.
They ordered that, man.
Yes.
But I don't think you could ever go wrong with some offers. I mean,
they look nice.
Classy.
They clean.
They're depending on the brand you get. They're usually very comfortable. You always see folks in the campaign get their campaign shoes and walk their way through the sole. Yeah. And I think a lot of folks do that.
What's the campaign shoe?
So like folks might buy like a new fresh pair of shoes to start the campaign with, but throughout the campaign they're knocking that many doors that they put a hole in the sole of the shoe. Yeah. And that's usually a point of pride for people. It means you've been working your butt off.
I do that all the time. That must be. I'm on campaign. I just walk heavy.
When Nike wanted to make an air canvas, I'm just saying, if they want to make an air canvas, they make a lot of money.
They definitely would. They definitely would.
That'd be dope. Oh man, now I got to think about my. See, I got the shoe game. I'm getting some knowledge here.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Okay. All right, you got it. You're gonna finish this out.
Okay, so of late, I've become a big bourbon drinker.
Oh yeah.
What is for both of you? What's your drink of choice? Not only type of drink, but like the actual brand.
Okay, here we go. So I like my bourbon like I like my coffee. Mm-hmm. So I literally just say, give it to me as it is, neat, as you say. But if I were gonna have a cocktail, I like an old fashioned.
Okay.
And then if someone says which one, rye or whatever, either one don't really matter to me. Just give me the old fashioned, and I like to make them. So it's a very simple drink. All it is bitters. What's it called? Bitters. Simple syrup. Mm-hmm. The bourbon. Cherry. Some people add a cherry. Some people add the orange peel. Some bama's try to do a little extra with it, like set it on fire and then like have a smoked. That's extra. I went to one place where this bama was like doing too much. I said, just give me the old fashioned. So old fashioned as a cocktail. Now bang for your buck. I've never been one to, I'm a cheap guy. A cheap date. I remember when I was in college, I drank Natty Light, and I thought I was doing good things. And then I get to I'm in this bourbon group, the Northern Virginia Bourbon Society, mm-hmm. And the reason why I joined it is because one of my older friends, Dean, he had a very good palate. My band Sam Hardman, was the middle of me. I was just social media, so I was like, let's make a group. And so by that we got educated, and I realized when we did like a blind taste test that, as you know, with everything, money does not equal quality. Mm-hmm. So there is some good quality bourbon that's still like $30-$40. One of my favorites is Russell Reserve. Buffalo Trace. You can't go wrong with that. Buffalo Trace. And then there was this other one, Old Granddad, but Old Granddad in bond. So you get it in bond. It's in bond. It's a cheap joint. It's like $25-$30. it comes in bond means that was like a old term where they had to prove that they didn't cut it too much with water, and they had a thing like called in bond. It was a certificate. So those are 3 ones I would suggest that you get: Russell's Reserve, just any Buffalo Trace, and that Old Granddad in bond, where you're not breaking the bank. It just tastes good. You're chilling with it. And then if you're going to go to get a drink, just get an old fashioned because it's very easy. And that's pretty much it. And I really want to do is an old fashioned tour where I just go to like a couple bars, like Jack Rose and all that, and see which one is a good old fashioned. And one of my goals is to actually do the Bourbon Trail and go to the actual distilleries and go to Maker's Mark, go to Buffalo Trace's place, go to not Russell Reserve, what's that one? Not Buffalo Trace, Maker's Mark, Woodford Reserve, and go to those places and go check them out. But that was my spiel. Yeah, I could go on all night.
I see.
Bourbon's my thing. It's easy. Like literally, it's easy. All you do is put it in a glass and drink it. You don't have to do nothing.
Indeed.
I'm kind of a location drinker.
Okay. Yes.
So like Phil, both on the JMU, didn't care what didn't care what was in front of me. Even and now I'm on constantly on the fundraiser circuit.
Yes.
And so I'm not expecting much. I am known to carry an airplane bottle or two at a large fundraiser that occurs in Richmond.
The airplane bottle? You order like the Coke and you put it by itself.
No, just have the bottles.
Oh, there you go. That's neat. I like that.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
Actually, and I'm not really a big liquor drinker, but the best drink, the last drink that I can remember that's like really good was over in Richmond at Havana's, the mojitos. That was I'm not a mojito drinker, but that was it had the flavor and it was smooth and that was probably the last drink that I was like, all right, I can come back here and I know that's what it is.
An actual cocktail.
Yeah, my wedding drink is probably a Jack and Coke. So
the Jack and Coke.
Yeah,
solid.
I tried to get shots at a wedding and they said we can't do shots. So I said, give me a Jack and Coke, but hold the Coke. And they did it. The guy, because he was like, I'm going to get in trouble with my boss. I was like, okay. I said, yo, just hold the Coke. Or I said, like, just give me the Jack and Coke and just put a splash. So he did like this. And then I was like, that's basically a shot.
Right.
I was trying to finesse. So that's great. This has been actually a great episode. We're going to do another one someday. Now it's you two. I
got one more question though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right,
you did a double for both of us. No, it could be a long question. I don't care.
Okay. Best black comedian ever.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw just a
dog
one in there.
I can't say ever.
Okay. Right now, because you got Eddie Murphy coming back to the scene.
Because I do have.
Do you think Eddie keeps up with the likes of Kevin Hart, Chappelle, and folks like that who are just out there killing it?
See, I don't see it. This is like a cop-out political answer, but like I don't think that when I ride the wave of who's the best comedian, it's not like, for me, it's almost like they got their moments to shine, and I don't look at them as an overall. I don't look at their overall chronological order. I look at like, yo, that DVD, if I pop it in right now, I can still watch it. And so this is my political answer. Like, I feel like every single comedian that I really like has their one. Like, I don't like all this, but they have that one that's my favorite. For instance, like Martin Lawrence. What was this one? Run Tell That. That was it. Chris Rock. Black. What was it?
Bigger Blacker.
Yeah, Bigger Black. Like, so Eddie Murphy can either go raw or delirious. Like, those were just like bam. Like, these are historic ones. So that's, I would say, Dave Chappelle. For me, is personally one of my favorites, and I still watch his stand up. The one that had like the orange, it's gonna come up to me. Watch me like just randomly text you when I get home because I still have it. Right. But like overall, I haven't listened to Sticks and Stones. I need to watch Sticks and Stones. I haven't watched it yet. I know it's a very controversial and all that stuff. But his older one, there's one that we were talking about Oscar the Grouch, and like it's like you can remember certain jokes, and it was like I would say Dave Chappelle's my favorite. And I would say overall, I love Dave Chappelle. And then his skits, but I'm trying to remove. Are we talking about stand up or skits?
Bro, I mean, you can bring it anyway. I mean, I don't.
Well, because stand up is a different art. We all know that, right?
It is absolutely
Skit comedy. You know, Keenan and Peele are killing it.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about them as comedians, Keenan and Peele, skit comedy, or you can say like sitcom comedy where they have to write and have storytelling involved. There's a different lane for that, but like stand-up wise, for me is Dave Chappelle stand-up.
I mean, and I view the different types of comedy kind of like when you talk about a real deep conversation about hip-hop. You know, you got people that their lyrical style is a certain thing. Yeah. You know, their vocabulary is a certain thing. I mean, I think for our comedians, they still have those different types of who they are, kind of make them great.
Well, I was about to say, like, Dave Chappelle for me because he killed the skit game.
Oh, yeah.
And then he has really good stand-up.
Oh, yeah.
And I bet if he wrote a show, it'd probably be good, like a little sitcom, like, you know, and he, like, opens the doors, like, it's Dave. Like, he would have killed that. It would have been a funny show.
No, his acting was...
A Half Baked is still that's one of my favorite movies. I still call my boy and go, Samson.
That's it, back out of
it. That's my story. Ask my boy Hiller. I literally just randomly say that. Or I do the doctor says I need a backiotomy. I say that all the time when my back hurts. And no one knows what I'm talking about. But see, that's like one of my, because
Mama Sheila does.
So I don't know. I think for me personally, like high school and then like early college when the Chappelle show came out, that Chappelle is my favorite. I just I'm gonna go with Chappelle. Like I don't know how it just went around and I had it, but if I make a choice right now, it's Dave Chappelle for his body of work and his different lanes.
Yeah, it's hard for me. You know, I think in terms of like comedians, like that 1996 like Friday Night Comic View on BET, like like those, you know, didn't know who they were, but like they were just all just real funny. You know, and like Phil was saying, I mean, I think of certain moments with certain comedians. You know, Chris Rock's always been a good one. Another thing for me is I like to see comedians when they're just like talking and it's funny. Like they're not even trying to be funny.
Right.
It just is hilarious.
Like interview funny. Like
when they're like when they're literally just talking in conversation to other people. It's almost like when Jerry Seinfeld, comedian, getting coffee.
And
they're talking to each other. But some of them are like Tracy Morgan. Like everything that comes out of his mouth is just like hilarious. Ridiculous. And like it is like he's funny. He just can't like
he's a funny normal person.
Yeah, he's not turning it on. Like he's just it's him. You know,
that's how his mind operates. Yeah. Like he's not like because there is like comedians where you know they're in the lab and they're writing out things. And I was listening to some guy the other day and he was like, "Yo, Jerry Seinfeld is like really hilarious, but like dry. Like you have to like know his storytelling style. Like." But like the way his mind works, he's really funny. And then there's like people that like, you know, they'll fall and like use physical comedy. And like, they're funny that way. But yeah, there's some comedians where like they're not even trying. They're just like, this guy's just talking to you and he's like making you laugh really hard.
Well, to me, Bernie Mac, I think that one routine where he's like, hit me, and like he's like that one routine, like he's like, I ain't playing around, y'all.
Bernie Mac's funny.
Bernie Mac is strong.
I could still watch that one too. The Kids of Comedy. See, that's what I'm trying to tell you. There are comedians that have timeless work. Where it's like that's like their album, like that's their thing, and like you can watch it. It can come on like late night on Comedy Central. And you're like, I'm still watching the stand up. And I've caught myself with the old Kevin Hart ones, but like, Bernie's funny too. Bernie's normal dad funny.
Yeah.
Like a normal guy. Like I hate my kids kind of funny. Milk and cookies. What? Like, why are you making fun of this? So this is a great episode. We're gonna have to definitely do this again. This is my part of the show. I call it shout outs and plugs. You get to shout out people and give plugs, side ventures, whatever you're trying to do. The lane is yours to do the shout out and plugs. Just make sure that whatever you shout out and plug, you send it to me in the show notes because I want people to, that's the point of the plug. Like I want them to be able to follow up with you. So whoever goes first, shout outs and plugs, floor is yours.
I go. Well,
he's ready.
It's just well. First of all, Election Day is November 5th.
Indeed.
That's important. November 5th. That means election. The polls open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you know you cannot make it, whether it's work or you just, you might be doing something else, vacation, you have opportunities starting last week to go and vote early. And most individuals can qualify to vote in what they call it absentee voting. And those absentee ballots are counted on election day, just like regular ballots. There's no different quality in there. And so, please go to your local, election site and take a look at where they're having absentee voting occurred. If you can't make it on election day, your commute to DC is 2 hours and you're still at work at 4 or 5 o'clock, and you're not going to make it there before the poll, because every single vote matters. And this election is important, and I guarantee you there will be about 2 or 3 races that come down to under 100 votes.
Okay. Okay. And as a follow, I'm not going to interrupt. Really try to interrupt. But how do you know who wins? Can people do live?
Yeah, absolutely.
Live number.
Yeah, absolutely.
Counting?
That's what we do.
Where do people see the live numbers?
So on election night, if you want to follow the results, you go to the State Board of Elections website.
Okay.
Virginia State Board of Elections, and essentially, as the vote totals come in, each precinct closes down. They submit their numbers to the State Board of Elections or locally, and they submit those to the website, and so it changes. So at 7 o'clock, you'll see, probably a little dearth of numbers, but it will trickle in. And the ones that kind of are stagnant are usually the ones that are going to be very close.
Okay. So that's good to know. I like to see. I mean, I gamify everything. I like to see numbers and who's winning. So that's where you can see the winners.
In terms of shout outs and plugs, you can catch me on Twitter at pdavy2, Facebook Paul Davis, Fairfax Young Democrats. I'm involved with that. I'm in the community, and if you have questions about elections or policies or what's happening in your local community here in Fairfax County, I definitely can point you in the right direction and get you to the individual that can answer your question fully, or I can answer your question fully. I'm just glad to be a resource in the community.
Shout out, love it. The human Wikipedia. All right, the Alexandria Nightmare, you up?
All right, perfect. So starting off on that front, we're having one of our first evening town halls at Pork Barrel Barbecue next Thursday from 8:30 to 10 p.m.
So I gotta get this podcast out before that. All right, I'm gonna
you missed that one, but check me out. Check me out. We will be doing evening town halls at a number of bars and restaurants across the city. That's going to be kind of my way of getting out and touching folks that we don't normally kind of connect with. And then also outside of council, again, I run an African-American tour company, Manumission Tours.
Yes.
So check us out, manumissiontours.com. Sign up for a tour. We have a lot of history in Alexandria, particularly African-American history that needs to be talked about and seen, and roll with me.
Okay, I want to do one. I love the tour part. Are these? Can you give a little bit more explanation about the tours? Are they on foot, on the scooters, or are they on the segways? Tell us.
They're not no scooters or segways just yet. I have no doubt we'll be looking at that sometime soon. We do. About the tour. Right now, we do 2 different walking tours. One that talks about early Alexandria, urban slavery, some of the abolitionist movements, including the Underground Railroad that ran through Alexandria, and some of the stories from that experience and that network.
I love it.
We also do another tour, the Duke Street Corridor Black History Tour, that goes and talks about a number of some of the early houses of worship that were established by former slaves, as well as talks about some of the historical sites in that Duke Street corridor over by Shiloh Baptist and Alfred Street. That area. So we've got a lot of stuff over there.
So you meet in Old Town and walk.
Yeah, we meet in Old Town and walk. Both tours are not more than 10 city blocks. So it's not a
I
whole,
love that. Oh,
whole
okay,
lot.
that's awesome.
Not a whole lot of hills. We stop, we talk, people chill. So it's not too physically taxing.
And last question, 'cause I love this. I love history. I'm gonna have to do one of these now.
Absolutely.
Maybe put my kid in a stroller. And
Yeah.
what days are these?
So I do them on Saturdays and Sundays.
What time?
On Saturday, I actually have another person that works with me. She does 10 and 12. I do a tour at 3:30. And then on Sunday, I do 1:30 and 3:30.
Oh, I might have to join one of them.
So check out the website.
I might have to put one of the kids on
Yeah.
in the walker thing and then do the stroller.
Yeah, check out the website.
Right.
We only do advanced RSVPs. So if I don't have anybody on a Sunday at 1:30, I won't do a tour. But,
How advanced?
usually earlier that day.
Oh, the day of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
I keep that time separate. I mean, I keep that time solidified. So
Okay,
if somebody
good. Okay,
wants
good.
to do it, I'm down.
that's good to know because you don't have to be like, oh, Monday. You could do it like
I
Friday
get folks.
night.
I'll get folks that all the time Friday night
Okay.
for Saturday.
Excellent.
So I'm ready to roll.
That's good to know. You're gonna put that in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this has been a pleasure. I'm definitely gonna have to do this again. I didn't realize we chopped it up. I know more. I'm feeling more informed. I definitely think that I love having you guys on the podcast.
Cool.
I'm not running for the mayor of Burke. I'll let you know
Not
right
yet.
now. Nah, I'm not because I by happenstance fall into politics and all these things. I'm not going for public office.
That's how it starts, man.
No,
That's
it's not how it starts at all.
It's literally how it
No,
starts, yeah.
stay away from me. I just vote. I vote. So, but thank you so much, listeners. Follow with these gentlemen. I'm gonna put their contacts in the. Like I said, the main thing about getting involved in politics is just learning from people, asking questions like I do, and you'll learn so much. And you don't have to be an expert. Just make sure that you're informed, and that especially when you're going to vote for important elections like this, just do a little bit of reading. Obviously, I think the more comfortable you are of what's going on, then when you check those boxes when you vote. You feel more comfortable with your decisions. You feel like you're making an impact because I know what I've heard from a lot of people is that they vote for a bunch of stuff and they don't know what they're voting for. So if you know what you're voting for, then you'll care more and you'll feel more invested. And then lastly, I can't say this enough because, I am an alpha man, that voting is so important because people definitely fought hard, died, was beat up, bit by dogs, all kinds of crazy stuff for us to have the right to vote. So it boils my blood if you say, oh, well, it don't matter. Well, just vote anyway. I feel like just vote because someone else out there literally fought so hard for this. So they didn't fight so hard for you to vote for us to be on sidelines and let actions in our local government just happen to us without us at least knowing what we're voting for. And I definitely appreciate the young people when I see the young people get involved because they got that passion. But just anyone, especially as Paul said, there's no excuses because I got to go to work late or this. It's all day. Do it right before you drop the kids off. Get that little sticker, stunt on your friends. But definitely vote. So we're going to get this out before the election. Make sure you get your voice heard. Make sure that you get out there and vote. Make sure that you participate in this process because if you don't participate in this process is going to participate without. Okay, it's just going to happen without you, and decisions are going to happen that you could have had an effect on, but you're just going to complain. So definitely vote. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, visit the website. I got a new thing where you can drop in voicemails right on the web, and I can throw them in here on the episodes or call in or leave tweets, all that stuff. Definitely interact with the listeners. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being on the podcast tonight. This is great.
Thank you for the invitation.
And we're going to do this again. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.